Morning, guys. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's talking and you're kind of there, but you're not there? So they say stuff and they ask a question like, where are we going? And you say, yes. So are we actually going to that place? Yes or no? Mm. Have you been there? Sometimes it's funny, right? Like, sometimes it's just a comical situation, but sometimes it can be very, very dangerous. Agree? It really depends on the question, it depends on the conversation, it depends on the context. And what we're going to talk about today is actually somewhat related to this. So, there's what you call absent-mindedness. What does that really mean? Your mind is absent. So you're physically present, but your mind is absent. If there's mental absent-mindedness, there's also spiritual absent-mindedness. So you can be spiritually absent as well. And I know that this text sounds familiar because a few weeks ago we were in Matthew and there was this event, right? The whole people leaving their boats and following Christ. Why is it back here again today? Well, if it's familiar in Matthew 4 and here, people mostly think, oh, it's probably the same event, but actually it's not. These are two separate events, okay? So essentially, the calling of the 12 disciples is not a one-time event in each of their lives. God calls the 12 of them progressively throughout their lives, the same way God calls us today. Are you familiar with, like, just think of your own life, for example, and then think of the life of others. For some of us here, the calling of God was an overnight thing. Agree? Like, you hear the gospel once in your life, boom, radical change. Overnight, that's it, the end. For others, it's not like that. You attend Bible study once. It was okay. It was kind of fun. The food was good. You attend Bible study again. I'm building friendships. These are nice people. Diba? It's more progressive. And then you hear the gospel several times. For me, it was both. It was progressive and then it was overnight. I attended Bible studies so many times, and then after maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, I attended church for the first time, and then I got born again in the church. But the call, I heard the gospel so many times. I went to discipleship already even before I got born again. So for some of us, the call is progressive. For the 12, a lot of it was actually progressive. So James, Peter, and John, this is a story for them. And what happened to them is actually quite interesting because there's also a progression. So let me give you the progression very quickly. So remember when John was baptizing and he goes, "Behold the Lamb of God," and then people followed Jesus. Remember that scene? Okay. So when John the Baptist was baptizing, Simon and Andrew followed Jesus that day. And then the next day, Philip and Nathanael were also invited. And with these dudes, Jesus attended the wedding at Cana. Remember that? He turns water into wine and all of that. After that, we go to Matthew 4 when Jesus calls the fishermen. That's Peter, Andrew, James, and John. And then, after they follow him, we're here. So it's another event where Jesus is preaching, and this is a separate event. So we're going to jump into Luke chapter 5, verse 1, and what was happening here. So on one occasion, while the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. And he saw two boats by the lake, but the fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Now there were two boats. Just FYI, the first boat belonged to Peter. Second boat, James and John, the brothers. All right, so the three guys went out. They were fishing while Jesus was preaching. Okay? Now, Luke writes it in a very strange way. Notice, I had to say it's Peter, James, and John. Luke doesn't write it. Luke doesn't directly say it. And Peter, James, and John were fishing and their boats were blah, blah, blah. The names were not there. Why did Luke write it in such an ironic plot twist kind of style? Have you ever seen those movies like there's a villain and the mask is there and you're like, who is this? And then when he removes the mask, oh, it's the best friend, or something like that. Right? Like there's a plot twist. Luke writes it this way too. Okay, first he doesn't write it's Peter, James, and John. The reason why Luke says there are two boats and fishermen. And it's after that that Luke then tells us that the first boat was Simon Peter's later on. Because Luke is implying something. What is it? Think of a movie. Let's go back to a movie scene. When there's an enemy, there's a villain wearing a mask, you don't know that it's the best friend or the brother or whatever. If there's a mask, you're thinking, by his actions, he's a villain. He's the bad guy. He's doing crazy bad stuff, right? And then when the mask is removed, plot twist, now I don't know how to feel. Right? Now look at what Luke wrote here. Jesus is preaching. There are crowds who are listening to Jesus. Wow, look at the crowds. And look at those fishermen over there, so far, not interested at all. They look like the villain. Agree? And the crowds look like the good guys who are so interested in the sermon. And this is the reason of the implication of Luke. James, Peter, and John don't look like disciples by their behavior. Because they're fishermen from a far distance to Christ. If you think about it, the people crowding Jesus looked more like the actual disciples based on behavior. And notice that the disciples, although already called disciples, were busy tending to their careers, and the people were the ones crowding to Jesus. So if we really want to assume things, maybe we can assume that the disciples were kind of multitasking. So Jesus was preaching, they were probably there listening, like fixing their nets, and they're probably listening to the sermon also. Okay, sige, all right, great. Right? But at the same time, even if they were listening, they were also frustrated with the bad catch of the day, the lack of fish. And we'll get there, and we've read it earlier, right? So they were frustrated. It's probably even possible that the three of them went fishing while Jesus was preaching. And when you're fishing, you can't listen to the sermon of Christ, right? So they're far away fishing. The crowds were there. Jesus was preaching. Now, think about it for us today. Imagine if during a sermon, church guests are listening intently while the formal members are chatting, laughing, giggling. Partially attentive, partially not there. In other words, spiritually absent-minded. You know, and you know it's easy to do that, to be perfectly honest. It's easy to know when to nod, when to say amen. You know, right? It's very possible. Have you ever tried this? You're praying, but your mind's somewhere else. Have you ever experienced this? You're singing a song, you know the lyrics, you know the music, you know the melody, so you know how to sing it subconsciously, but you're thinking of something else, you're doing something else. Now, it takes extra skill, but it's even possible to read the Bible while doing and thinking of something else. It's very possible. Very. Imagine how strange it would look like in a setting where there's a Bible study, a sermon, a preaching, a church event, and non-believers are more eager at attending and listening and learning. They're imperfectly participating. And imagine in a Bible study, they're even saying all the wrong things, all the most unbiblical things, taking verses out of context, way out of context. You know, it's funny. It's usually like that, right? The first time I attended Bible study, I said all the wrong stuff. You know, who is God to you? God to me is like the universe. It's usually like that. But that's fine. In fact, we rejoice when people come, and we even rejoice when they say all the wrong things. Not because we want them to be wrong, but we're happy because if they're saying the wrong things, they're still participating. That means they're interested. And if there's interest, there's a big possibility or chance that the Word of God can actually sink into their hearts because they're open. And that's what the hope really is. You see, many times that this happens to more mature Christians. Because more mature Christians, many times we feel what? I already know this. I've read this. In fact, I read it ahead last night. Because I know the sermon today. In fact, I exegeted this last week. Usually it's like that. So I can check out mentally now. I'll think of what to do later, tonight, tomorrow. Right? We're no longer really there. You see, the real issue here is, or the real irony here in this scene is not an accident. We're not talking about full-time ministry versus part-time, okay? We're not saying, oh, if you're a Christian, you should leave your career as a fisherman or as a programmer or as an IT developer or something and do full-time ministry. That's not the issue here. Okay, there's no such thing. If you're a dad, you're a dad. You're a full-time dad. Even if you're at work, you're still a full-time father while you're in your work, right? If you're a husband or a wife, you're a full-time husband or wife, no matter where you are or what you're doing. Okay, so there's no such thing as a part-time / full-time. Everyone's a full-time Christian. The issue here, okay, is being focused on the present. If you can. Now, if you have to work, it's understandable. If it's really work-related, if you have to. But if it's not a requirement for you, if it's not something that you must do at the moment, then be present. If there's no real emergency or no real requirement to multitask, the point here is this: wherever you are, be there. If God called you to be in a certain place, be there. Now, how you got there, we don't know. For some of us, and I've been there a lot, I arrive in certain situations because of my own foolishness, because of my own stupidity, my own disobedience to the Lord, because of my unbiblical decisions and actions. But you know what? Lord, you allowed me to be here, even if it's based on my foolishness. Okay, I'm going to be fully present here. I'm going to do my best, and I will try to be excellent, even if I'm here because of all the wrong reasons that I myself did to myself. Sige na lang. But I'm here, I'll be here. I'll excel, I'll honor you, Lord, I leave the results to you. But wherever you are, for whatever reason, be there. Be in the present. Be in the moment. The problem with us is we don't do that. We're in one place, but we're somewhere else in our head. We're somewhere else in our hearts. We're somewhere else in our spiritual walk. So we are here, but we're not really here. We're reading scripture, we're praying, but our hearts are somewhere else, our minds are somewhere else, our focus is somewhere else, our desires are somewhere else. And that's really the problem. Now, how do we know this is the point of the text? It sounds a little far-reaching, yes? It's like, it's going to get proven soon. Look at verse 3. Jesus actually proves it. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's, or this is Peter, Simon Peter, he asked him to put out a little from the land, and he sat down and taught the people from the boat. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we toiled all night and took nothing. But at your word, I will let down the nets." And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both the boats so that they began to sink. Can you picture that for a moment? How much fish should you catch for a boat to be threatened to sink? Just picture it with your mind. It sounds improbable. It sounds illogical. And you're probably thinking, oh, well, it's Israel. Their boats probably did not have kanang katig on the sides, but still, that's a lot of fish. So what's the point here? Try to imagine it. Jesus gets on Peter's boat and says, "Put out a little from the land." So what does that look like? So first, Jesus was on the shore, and the people were on the shore. So they're probably on the sand, diba? Bare feet, feels great. And then Jesus gets on the boat and says, "Put out." So it's probably going to be at a place, because boats should not really stay on land or ano. So what happens? If the boat goes further out, what do the people have to do to listen? They have to wade into the water. Where the water would be somewhat where? Maybe knee deep. We don't really know. So maybe so that some of the kids can still hear, the shorter kids, the children. So maybe knee deep water, right? So what does the picture look like? Jesus on a boat, giving spiritual feeds to people with open mouths. What does that look like? He's literally fishing for people. He created the scene. And that's what Jesus does all the time, right? Like, look at the birds in the air. And people look at the air, oh yeah, bitaw no. Look at those nests. Look at the fig tree. Jesus creates these scenes to make it memorable. So he's doing the same thing now. But this is a case in point. What did they catch? Peter, James, and John? Nothing. Jesus gets on the boat. What did he catch? People. So he's proving a point here. As if Jesus is saying that the boat you use for your career, here's how you really should use it. What career do you have today? We all have different careers. Whatever our careers today, those are just vehicles. And these are vehicles to make disciples. We're not at work just for money. You know, here's the interesting thing. God said in Matthew 6:33, and we've mentioned this last time, seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you as well. Jesus could simply just decide that money will grow in our wallets. Like, literally, you have a wallet, you open it, you get money out. When you close it, there's money inside. When you open it, there's money again. He could do that if he wanted to. But he doesn't. And so we have to work. And yet, he says, when you go to work, the focus should not be the money. It's not your career advancement. The goal for why we have careers is so that we can reach more people. How does your career give you more access to more people? How does your job or your business give you more influence, more network, more potential to reach out to people? For those in marketing and sales, that's amazing. You've got contacts everywhere. See, how does our work give us the potential to talk to people about the gospel? Because every person is actually a potential disciple and a potential discipler. We're not just thinking of, I will have to disciple someone. But no, really, it's when we preach the gospel, it's a real possibility that that person will preach the gospel eventually later on to more people. So it's exponential. You see, the truth is this. Wasting life is not limited to collecting seashells. A wasted life is also collecting accolades, earthly achievements, to the exclusion and neglect of discipleship. If we are so focused on our careers that we neglect making disciples, there's really no point. It doesn't mean anything. It's as meaningless as a seashell collection in front of God in heaven. I was listening to some people who were making discussions about opportunities in the industry in Cebu City and all of that. And one of the people I overheard said this, I'm actually so glad that we have Saturday and Sunday so that I can work on my passion projects for 2 days. And I thought about it and said, really? Your weekend is for your passion project? And his passion project is nothing spiritual at all. In my head, I just thought, I have Saturdays to work on my passion project. Because on Sundays, my real passion for life is lived out. And then I suddenly had this sad compassion for people who don't know God. Because all they really have is what? Go home, go to work, go home, go to work, go home, go to work, go home, go to work. Passion project here, passion project there, and eventually they pass away. If they achieve their passion project, the question now is, so what? What's next? What if your passion project is to build a statue? So you built a statue. After a few years, no one's going to think of that statue. They're just going to say, huh. And once that falls, wala na. Without God, not even the greatest, most amazing passion project will mean anything. And so we must go back to our first love. We have to start thinking of our Great Commission. Our first love and the Great Commission are connected. When Jesus tells Peter to go into deeper waters, this is to prove the point that fishing, or the career that Peter had, is still under God's sovereignty. If you really think about it, fishing does not mean much to us. When we read this text, okay, they caught some fish, wow. But you have to remember, for a fisherman, catching fish is everything. So think of your career for a moment. What would it take for you to say that was the best of my career? Like the very, very best. Because If you really imagine it, when Peter said, we toiled all night and took nothing, that's career failure. Imagine saying this. I did crazy marketing. I boosted my post. I tried to sell, but not a single sales for the whole month. Why halin? I toured all the suppliers. Nobody would deal with me. No one would give me a fair price. So I can't do any projects. I went around for construction. No one fit our budget. I applied to all the companies near and far. Nobody is hiring. I talked to so many potential clients, but at the last minute, they cancel. There's so many promotions. Everyone got promoted except me. I took the board exam. I failed. Can you picture that? That's what Peter was saying. We toiled all night, caught nothing. Suddenly, it's more relevant to us, no? We can relate if it's your career or your business. For me, it's a farm. I planted 20 batches. None of them grew. All of them died. Even the fish died. There's leaks everywhere. Can you picture that? That's how it might feel. This could also be personal. It's not just related to career. It's any passion you have or any hope. We tried all the doctors. We're not pregnant. Just, God's not giving us a child. I've met so many people. Everyone has romance, and I'm still reading the book of romance in the Bible. That's the only romance I have. Friendships. So many people are gaining more friends. And in my barkada, there's just four of us. Me, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Or, I tried so many endeavors and I fail nonstop. So picture it. If it's not career, it can be personal hopes, personal dreams, personal struggles. Everything belongs to God. And it's very clear that Peter, James, and John were frustrated by their lack of fish. So they were fixing their nets. Jesus was preaching. Their mind was on the lack of fish. May pa si Jesus, daghan tao. Can you picture if I was a fisherman and I would look at Jesus? You know what I would be thinking? If only I were Jesus and those people were fish, I'd be so happy. And Jesus will prove that point. So if you think about it, they were at the same beach, in the same shore, but their minds were on their careers. And the bittersweet irony was this. They were obedient to Jesus, that's good, but especially when it came to their careers. Ironic. It's like, you're master, Lord. I'll do everything you say. But, man, no fish. And then Jesus says, I'm going to go with you now. Go out, cast your nets. So they're obedient to Jesus, good, but were they? Or was it more for career's sake? There's a, di ba parang bittersweet? It's like good but not really. For us, it's kind of like I'm going to obey God in everything I do, but God, my career, don't forget, it's bittersweet. Maybe bittersweet for God more than for us. For us, it should really just be bitter without the sweet. And we do this today all the time. We do Christian things, Sunday service, Bible studies, evangelism. But it's possible to be perpetually, partially distracted the whole time. You do discipleship, but you're thinking of this. You're doing Bible study, but you're thinking of that. It's so challenging to just be content with God from time to time. There's no real full surrender to God in certain areas of our lives. And Jesus proves a powerful point next. They go out, cast your nets. Peter's like, okay. And can you imagine Peter thinking, I'm the fisherman, you're the rabbi. You might know about the Torah. I know about fishing. Right? But that's really, if I were Peter, guys, seriously, it's just my fallen self here, imagining things. If I were Peter, Master, you know the scriptures, but I know fish, okay? And you don't know about fish, but we'll see. But you're master, so I'll obey you lang. Maybe you're trying to prove a point or something. Maybe you're going to symbolize this or something. And then it's literal. The nets break. And then he starts screaming, "Oi, help!" And then they pull, and then the boats are sinking. Oh, dear Lord, we're going to sink. It's the best catch of the day. Imagine for a moment for us, imagine there's so much sales that your cash register is full of 1,000 peso bills. And it's so full, you have to get your backpack and use it as a new cash register. That's how it would look like. Imagine there's too many projects, there's not enough people, not enough time. Giilugan pa ka. Imagine for a moment, companies are fighting over you. You've got companies A, B, C, D, and E, and all of them are fighting, offering the higher paying whatever just to get you. Imagine for a moment from, Lord, give us a child, and then suddenly you're pregnant with triplets, huh? Like, okay, here's 3. Like, can you picture that? Suddenly you have a K-drama boyfriend or C-drama girlfriend. And then first day meeting, date, second date, proposal. like, just picture whatever it is. Career, personal dream, hope, whatever it is. Picture, that is what Jesus is trying to prove. What? That if Christ is there, that will succeed if He desires. But how will the success affect your devotion? That's the real question. The question does not stop at, will God bless me? The question is, how will you respond if God says yes? That's the question. The conclusion, there's 2. Either you conclude that God is finally honoring all my efforts and hard work. After all the stuff I've done, God finally recognizes me. God finally honors me. In other words, God, or rather, my hard work can create God-favored results. You see that? My hard work can create God-favored results. Or, here's conclusion number 2. God is sovereign over all of my efforts and hard work. God is in control of all the results. Therefore, my hard work is totally dependent on God-ordained results. Which conclusion will you get? It's dangerous and it's tricky. Because many times we work so hard and God blesses us and we go, ha! Dapat lang. I deserve this. God owed me this. God should have actually done it sooner. I guess He was, busy in another country. No, it can't be like that when it shouldn't be. Without Jesus, they caught 0 fish. With Jesus, I feel like they caught the whole ocean. Like, I was picturing this while I was preparing, and I couldn't help but imagine the whale sharks, the butanding. They're huge. And I just thought, if a butanding would get on a boat, the boat would be destroyed. So, Lord, what did you let them catch? Jonah's whale? Like, how would we respond to this? Would we follow Jesus or follow the fish? That's the big question. So, let's say you're working on your career, whatever it is, business, opportunities, promotion, and then God gives you that. Are you going to say, thank you, God, be with me some more as I pursue it, so I keep succeeding? Or would you say, Lord, now I know that you're in control of all things, you're sovereign, I'm sorry for focusing on this so much, I'll follow you instead. Whatever you decide for whatever path in my life, amen, thumbs up, okay. But I follow the Lord because He owns the fish. He owns everything. He controls every result. Now, on a scale, all right, you know that following God is win-win? Following anything else is lose-lose. Some people say following everything else is win-lose. You might lose God, but you'll win everything else. But actually, that's not true. Because if God so decided that if you follow those other things, He will not bless your efforts, you don't get those anyway. So it's a lose-lose. Now, if you follow God, if you lose whatever career you have, you're still with God, which means God can give you other stuff, which is actually the good, pleasing, and perfect thing for you. So, the only thing you lose is the temporary emotion that you lost something you did not know was not really good for you after all. Is that really a loss? Really? Is that really a loss? It's not. What did you win? You won getting removed from something not good for you. So you won safety from a bad thing that was deceptively looking like a good thing. And you want the actual good thing from the Lord. And the best part is, you have God Himself. That's the ultimate win-win-win situation. And people don't see it. Verse 8. Look at the response. I'll be honest, because so if you've read the Bible several times, right? One of the ways to read the Bible is to pretend you've never read it. Be like a method actor. I've never read the Bible. I've never read the Bible. I've never read the Bible. And then you read the Bible. And just pretend you've never read it. If it were me, my response would have been, here it says, verse 8, but when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, now, I replace it with my thoughts. My thoughts would have been, stay with me forever. Because I want this catch all the time, every day. I will be the fish mogul of Israel. Like, you want fish? I'm the guy to call. Why? What's your secret to fish catching? What's your secret? Jesus. I've got a lucky charm. Whenever I go fishing, He's with me. The fish seem to be attracted to Him. So that's my fallen, sinful self. But look at Peter. Peter says, depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so also were James, John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men. And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed Him. Isn't it so strange? Who among you, when God finally blessed you, you repented? I'll be honest. I repent when I sin and God gives me the consequences of my sin. But when God blesses me, I don't repent. Like when I get a good deal, I'm sorry, Lord. Like when someone buys a project I'm selling, I don't say, depart from me, O Lord, I am sinful. Right? What do I say? Thank you, God. Right? Who among you has ever repented because God blessed them? No one. So, what's the point here? That the entire time, Peter was thinking of the fish. That is why when Jesus finally proved it, he realized, my priorities were wrong the entire time. Can you picture that? So, here's the situation for you. Imagine for a moment, okay, I know this is a short text, but I hope it proves the point. Imagine for a moment you're praying so hard, you're trying to what? Get promoted, get a career, get this new job, get this or get that, whatever. Okay? And you're working so hard that you've neglected God the entire time. You're just not praying, not reading the Bible, not going to church. Why am I not in church? I'm too busy. I'm a workaholic, bro. It's like that. Why are you not going to Bible study? I've got my career. I've got this, I've got that. And then and nothing works. You're so frustrated. And you go to God. And you go, God, there's nothing. And then can you imagine if God orchestrates a situation? Maybe there's a Bible study and it kind of spoke to you, or you attended a service one time and it kind of spoke to you. And you say, okay, sige, I'll try it. And then God blesses you. Diba? That's when you realize, Lord, I should have gone to you this whole time. I just realized now, without you, I'm nothing. It was only because of your will that I received a tiny bit of favor. Now the heart condition is revealed. Do you follow God or do you pursue your passions again? This should prove it. Jesus was saying, see, now that I'm here, there's the fish. I control everything. That's what God was saying to them. Peter does not repent of generic sin. We know that this is done. Remember? We know that he already knows this. It's not generic. The sin that Peter repents of is actually specific. What was it? It was the sin that Jesus pointed at. What was the point Jesus proved? Is that they were so focused on the fish and caught nothing because the results belong to God. Our efforts are useless without God. But with God, we will succeed. But succeed in what? Remember Matthew 4:19 happened first. What was Matthew 4:19? He said to them, follow me, I will make you fishers of men. So they dropped their nets, they followed Jesus. And along the way, they got distracted again. And all of us, that happens. I'll follow the Lord, yes. And then while following the Lord, distraction, career, hopes, whatever, right? We get so distracted, we focus on all these things. And so Jesus has to remind us, see, nothing, no. Okay, tired? All right, time to prove a point. Then we see it. This is actually a little painful as well for them, because this is a stern reminder that Jesus already said to them before. Jesus already said, follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. What are you doing? Fishing for fish. So Jesus proves it in how many ways? In 3 ways. First way, the picture. When he gets on a boat, right, and the people were there. The second way he proves it, he actually gets literal fish into their nets. And the third way he proves it is when Peter actually repents and says, depart from me, O Lord. Why depart from me, O Lord? I'm a wicked man. What made him wicked? What made him wicked? The fact that he forgot God. That he became so focused on everything else again. Because that's a strong word, right? Depart from me, O Lord. That means my heart has not been with you for this time. For quite some time now, my heart has been everywhere else except God. I'm still so focused on other things. That's why he says, depart from me, O Lord. It wasn't, sorry, Lord, I kind of forgot. That's heavy. Depart from me, O Lord, for I am a wicked man. What does he think? I don't deserve this anymore. I was called to be a follower of a powerful rabbi, and my focus was not there. I don't deserve this opportunity. I should just leave. And Jesus proves that it's fine. He says, you're right, I should depart. Wicked fisherman. Like Jesus doesn't do that. What does Jesus say? Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching men. Grace again. Another chance. You know, it's very interesting here. Because many times, very many times, we desire something so badly that we idolize it. There's nothing wrong with desiring stuff. There's nothing inherently immoral or wicked about, wanting a good career, having a good job, getting promoted, having this or that kind of life. There's really nothing wrong with those things. But when we prioritize those over God, that's when it becomes sin. And that sin will consume and devour and eat your heart. It will claw at your heart non-stop. And the danger of that is the more we like that thing, the more or the less we desire God. That's how all emotions work. Okay? When you're closer to that thing, I'll give you an example about fear and then desire. Okay? Let's pretend there's this giant bodyguard around you, okay? Giant bodyguard with like 5 machine guns and, but a lot of weapons, okay? And then there's a death threat to you, okay? Now, if you're nearer to the crowds and you're far from your bodyguard, would you have fear? Yes. If you're nearer to your bodyguard and farther from the crowd, will you have fear? Probably no. Now, think of temptation. What temptation is harder to resist? If you're near the temptation already, it's right there. Like for those who are dieting, for example, or when we diet. When is it harder to resist temptation? When the refrigerator is open and the food's right there? Or when the food is so far from you and you're busy doing something else? You see? Whatever you're closer to has a stronger emotional effect. So if you are so tempted to turn something into an idol, it means you're closer to that thing. But if you're always sticking with God, close to God, then the emotional effect of the other stuff doesn't have a strong effect in your heart. Because you're closer to your God than to all those other things. May it be the source of desire or the source of anxiety, the source of temptation, the source of fear. Whatever it is. Where's your priority? Well, that depends. What are you closer to? Who are you intentionally being close to God or stuff. The irony here is when you desire something that's not God, and God finally allows you to have it, what's the effect? We've all been there at some point. Have you ever experienced this? You're desiring a certain kind of sin. You desire it. It's more and more and more and more. I will sin. And then finally you break free and you sin. God lets you have it. Okay, you want to? Okay, there you go. Sige there. There's your desire. Have it. What's the effect? Diba it's heartbreak? Oh Lord, what have I done? Oh Lord, why am I here? Oh God, please save me from myself. That's the effect. And sometimes it's something very sinful and immoral. Sometimes it's something neutral that has become an idol. And you finally get it and you go, Lord, it doesn't give me the fulfillment I have, that I expected. I still have this longing, this whatever. Paita na lang. That's the effect. See, every desire in our hearts, on some level, is a reflection or echo of our broken relationship with God, if it's not God that we're desiring. I'll say it again. Whatever you're desiring, if it's not God, if God's not your final, ultimate, highest desire, okay, whatever that thing is that replaced God, that's just an echo or reflection of our broken relationship with Him. It's true for non-believers, it's true for believers alike. For Christians, it's true. For non-Christians, it's true. Because all of us, whether Christian or not, know what it's like to desire something above God. Lastly, we have to acknowledge our utter desperate reliance on God. We see that Peter was afraid, and Jesus said, do not fear. And it made me wonder, what was Peter afraid of? Because Jesus said, do not fear, right? I really don't think he was just afraid of getting scolded. That sounds a little too shallow for me. You know? He said, depart from me. I am a wicked man. What caused him to say this? Remember before, Jesus said, follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. And then he chased after things. As Christians, here's what it may have looked like. Follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. And we say, yes, Lord, I will be a discipler for Jesus. Train me, Lord. Train me, church. Give me, empower me. I want to make disciples. Let's, woohoo. And then within a year, wala na care, wala na concern. I just do the Christian stuff every week and I'm a Christian. Yay. And then, after a while, God gives you everything you've worked hard for. And you realize you've spent, 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. And you realize, what have I done? I've climbed the corporate ladder. I've opened up several businesses. 2 disciples, one fell away because I neglected him. The other one, I didn't even try to finish. What happened? And then we realize, oh Lord, I have been wicked the whole time. I was playing Christian. The same way Peter, James, and John were playing disciples. They were walking with Jesus, but their mind was, wala, nindot na sunset, padung na ang fish. Can you picture that? They're walking, at this time, bro, diba, the tide, diba, what kind of fish? Yeah, it would be good fish. They're with Christ, but their minds are somewhere else. They're thinking of something else the whole time. That's probably why he said, depart from me, I am a wicked man. And yet, Jesus gives grace. He says, do not fear. So what is he probably afraid of? He's probably afraid that deep down he's not skilled. Maybe I can't preach like Jesus. How am I going to catch fishers of men? I have stage fright magani. Diba? How about the fact that I'm such a sinner? I have so many different priorities. Or how about I'm not worthy? And God addresses these things. We're not capable or skilled. God handles the results. God owns the fish. God owns the harvest. God knows when the fish will come to break the nets and break the boats. And God also decides when there's no fish that will enter the nets. For your discipleship, same thing. We just cast the nets. We let Jesus decide on the catch. But I'm a sinner. We're all sinners. So what? Christ has forgiven. He went to the cross. So that's not an issue. That's not a factor. If anything, that's actually a good thing. Why? Because when we preach the gospel to others, we can say, I can relate. Diba? When people say, I don't want to enter church. Why? Musud ko sa church, masunog ko. Have you heard that? Like, I read the Bible. How you read the Bible? Ako di ko. If I read the Bible, my hands will burn. Like I've heard that so many times as a joke. And you know what I tell them? I can relate. Ako gani, pag sud na ako sa church mo, ni aso ko gamay. Like, we can say something like that, right? Like, I know what you mean. I've been there. I know what it's like to sin with all your might. And I know what it's like to not love God, to hate God. But here I am. So if God can do this for me, God can do this for you. And I have a feeling I'm a better sinner than you. Like, ano lang good. We can relate with people. That's actually a good thing. And thirdly, if we say we're not worthy, that's why it's called grace. It's not called merit. Diba? It's by grace you've been saved. Not you have been saved by credentials. No. It's by grace. It's mercy. So to conclude, if we summarize the whole thing, many times we find ourselves in an in-between situation. What's the in-between? We're not sinning outright. We're not doing anything inherently immoral, ungodly, or wicked. But we're also kind of out of focus sometimes. Yeah? Out of focus is like you're focused on all the other stuff. We're out of sync. We're partially distracted, mostly undevoted. Or maybe the other way around. We're partially devoted, mostly distracted. Yes? Partially devoted, mostly distracted. We love God, we appreciate God's grace, but we prioritize our own earthly goals above God. So that makes our attention divided. Here's the truth. We will say it with our mouths. We want to honor God. But in our hearts, we want God to honor us. Agree? I want to honor the Lord. Deep down, Lord, look at all my efforts put. Honor me too. Right? It's strange. We begin to prioritize other things above God, and then we end up in sin. Now, here's the problem with us as Christians. We reject this with theory. We reject it with our words. Right? Like when people say, do you prioritize God above everything else? Yes, of course, amen. 10 points. Right? Like we know the correct answer. Like, do you love God? Of course. With all of your heart or mind? Of course. What else should I love with all of my heart, mind, soul, and strength? With verse pa, quotation. The problem with Christians, with many of us, is with words, we say and claim we love God above all things. With our actions, we reveal ourselves to be semi-hypocritical. I won't say fully hypocrites, because there is a part of, we struggle with it, right? So we struggle. We fight it. We fight the temptation to desire other things more than God. So there's that tug of war. So we're not fully, the full hypocrite is fully pretending. So we're not fully hypocrites, we're semi. Right? There's a degree to that. It's kind of like a bittersweet thing again. It's like, I want to love God, and like, Lord, take me now. Sometimes it's like that. So with our actions, with our decisions, with our thoughts, the thoughts we indulge, with our emotions. Actually it's a mind, but actually it's more of a heart thing. When you fantasize with your mind, when I get this, when I accomplish that, when I gain this, that's a mind activity, but really it's a heart thing. Right? Because it's all desire, it's all emotion. Our actions reveal our intentions. Our decisions reveal our priorities. That's really the truth. Now, usually, we have so many points for conclusion for our sermons. Today, just 3 simple questions. The first question is, are you a real disciple? God tells us to examine ourselves. The Bible tells us to examine ourselves. Christian, not Christian, whatever religion, God tells us to examine ourselves. Are we really following Jesus? In other words, have I given my life to Christ? Really, really? The question isn't, are you born again or not? That's not the question, okay? Because if I ask the question, are you born again? What does that look like? Born again, the phrase is a status, right? It's like saying I'm a cancer survivor. It's a status. Being born again, that's a status. What does that look like? So what does it look like? Desiring God's word. Enjoying God's word. Enjoying God's presence. You know, when we talk about God, so I was talking about God to a friend of mine. There's a difference between talking about God in an abstract way and a relational way. Abstract way, yeah, I was reading my Bible, I was studying God's word and all of that. That's all good. I'm not saying that's bad. Okay, that's good. But many times we get caught up in that and we forget the relational side. What's the relational side? Di ba when you talk to your barkada about another barkada who's not there? I'm not saying gossip, ha? I'm saying, in a good way ba? Like, oh yeah, I hung out with ano bitaw yesterday. Oh, what did you do? Ano ngaon lagi mi dito, lamay kayo. And that guy is so funny. He has all the crazy stories, Jude. I really enjoy hanging out with him. Let's call him na. Sige, let's hang out with him. Sige. Di ba that's what it sounds like? Talking about a friend. Or do we talk about God in that kind of fondness amongst each other? I was talking to God, I was praying, and, I just realized this and that. It doesn't have to be highbrow, diba? Like, I was praying, and in my Bible, I opened to 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9, and the Greek and Latin of this. Really? We don't need that. It can be a very simple, relational, joyful thing also. And I think that's sometimes what we lack. So are you a real disciple? Not are you born again? Are you really enjoying God? Are you following God because you enjoy God? Or wala pa? That's the first question. Or nawala na? Or a little fading, a little struggling? How's your relationship with God? Second question. Are you mentally/spiritually absent? Or is your attention divided? All the questions are interrelated, so it's easy. How's your heart, basically? How's your priorities? Are your priorities consuming your mind and your heart in such a way that you're forgetting God na? Like for the married, like a husband but not really a husband, like a wife but not really a wife. I'm fulfilling my duties but I'm not really there. I'm there, like I go home to the same house, that makes me still a husband. Like if I go to the same house, I provide, I'm still a husband. Like, is that really it? Or are you still emotionally connected? That's how it works. That's how relationship works. Your decisions matter. And lastly, how's your spiritual life? Like, you just assess everything. How's your spiritual life? How's it going? Many times, the whole fishers of men, here's a main thing that I hope everyone recognizes. Many times we're so afraid of doing discipleship with others because deep down we know that we're not disciples ourselves. I don't want to make disciples of others because what am I going to say? I'm not a disciple myself anyway. I'm not reading, I'm not praying. So what am I going to talk to the person about? How can I talk about God when I have not hung out with God? Can you imagine, like, okay, so this is one last illustration I want to give. Have you ever experienced this? Kanang there's a faker in the group. It's going to sound a little funny. But kanang like, you say, hey, have you seen this movie? Like, for example, Spider-Man, the Spider-Verse. Like, have you seen it? Yeah. And then there's this guy who says, yeah, I've seen it. But remember bitang wala. And so you kind of test him. And then you say something like, oh, remember that scene when he was fighting like what? Like you give a villain that wasn't really in the movie? When he was fighting like Doctor Strange and you're like, yeah, bitaw no, in the Spider-Verse. And you're like, I know you haven't seen it, right? Masakpan ba? Like, lahi mo ng movie, and someone nagitanaw, and then he goes, maybe ang trailer sa ano, wala na. Like, wala na, he's bluffing na. And many times, we feel so intimidated to make disciples because we haven't been disciples for quite some time. And so the reason why a lot of people are so afraid to evangelize is because they have not spent time with God. They've spent more time with everything else. So what happens? You meet someone and you're more confident talking about everything else except God. And that's how you know that your spiritual condition needs intervention help, intervention level help. Amen? I know this is a little painful for 11 verses, but it's good for us to always be reminded and to assess ourselves and say, Lord, I have been doing things in some crazy ways. Help me. Let's pray.